Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Beyond The Quo. This is your podcast where we stop settling and start leading with courage, clarity, and purpose. I'm your host, Stacey Luces, and you already know what this space is about. Redefining success on our own terms, living unapologetically, and rising beyond the status quo, and leading courageously. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to have a real moment with you. Well, the first real moment is my daughter's graduating tomorrow, so I've been alternately crying all weekend, but trying to hold it together. And then the other thought is, as they're growing older and sort of redefining my role as a parent, and I'm sure many of you are experiencing this if you're in this same stage, I'm standing kind of at the edge of this life and I'm like, this isn't bad, but it's not really me anymore. Like they don't need me for basic tiny things. They need me for early adulthood, semi-fully adult decisions. And that is quite a different flex because I want to prescribe how to do it. Because I think I want to save them the lesson, but they don't want me to prescribe it. They want just general guidelines, maybe some, just like when you go bowling and you're just learning and you pull the little, I don't even know what it's called, the ramp up. They just want general direction. And I just have to trust that they are going to stay true to the core values I've taught them and kind of the basics and get it done, right? And I'm sure like many of you, you've done all the things. You feel like you've done all the things, check the boxes, built a career, built a family, they're going off to college. We're doing the right things, but still inside some of us, not all of us, but most of us, there's still this ache for more. And that's really what this podcast is here to do. It's beyond the status quo, beyond the quo. What am I really here to do? What is my purpose? Is it more authenticity? Is it more joy? Is it more giving back? Like what's the legacy I'm leaving, right? Many of you, not only the guests I've had, but certainly the guest that I will introduce you to in just a moment have felt that. And today's guest, he's lived through it and then rebuilt something even better. But before we go there, let me remind you, wherever you are in your journey, whether it's rising from rock bottom, because certainly podcasts play a role in some of us that when we are in the ditch and we don't know how to get out, they provide this sort of navigation system, this light in the dark tunnel, if you will, that gets us out of where we are, or coasting on a version of success that no longer fits, as was the case with me, or coming back from a health setback or a loss. This space is for you. This conversation is for you because waiting on the other side of reinvention, it's not just more impact or more, whatever your definition of success is, a bigger house, but it's more you. It's more of you and your essence and what you're truly here to do. So take a deep breath, grab your tea, grab your journal, or just have a quiet moment to yourself and plug in. Today's guest, his story hit me deeply. And it's not because about business, right? Like I feel like we meet a lot of business people that we're impressed with. It's about what he's become through his own personal transformation. Colin Yearwood is my guest today. He embodies what it looks like to lead yourself through fire and come out stronger, wiser. Are we wiser, Colin?
Absolutely.
And more aligned. Colin is a Caribbean-born powerhouse, originally from Guyana. That's where we first bonded. I'll tell you a funny story about that just now. Who's helped coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs make over $400 million in coaching sales, even when they thought they weren't salespeople. And I feel like none of us like to think we're salespeople, but it's all some form of sales, right? But beyond the numbers, I love that Colin's a dude who's done the inner work. From losing weight to finding purpose after divorce and layoff to falling in love with a process he used to hate, sales. Colin now coaches leaders inside high-level spaces like Arlen's All Access. Arlen is Arlen Hamilton. She is both of our mentor in a mastermind that we're both in called Arlen's All Access. But more importantly, Colin helps people just like you and me reclaim our voices, align with our values, and serve from a place of soul, not script. So let's get to it. Colin, welcome to the show. Thank you for driving all the way from Tampa to be here. I really appreciate it.
On a rainy day.
On a rainy day, yes.
It's a lovely drive. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited that
really
you've invited me and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So before we jump right into it, there's this Trinidad, so I'm from Trinidad originally. There's this Trinidadian Guyanese sort of, what can we call it?
Rivalry?
It's a little rivalry where in Trinidad, we say curried chicken And in Guyana, they say
chicken curry.
And I would love listeners to say which one you think is anatomically correct, right? It's like the chicken and the egg. Which came first? We think it's you say baked chicken, stewed chicken, right? Barbecue chicken. You don't say chicken barbecue, Colin. We can do this all day.
Look, here's my
final word.
Final word on it. Once it's good curry, it doesn't matter what you call it.
This is fair.
And I think the biggest rivalry is I believe Guyanese cook the better curry. But that's just my
Listen,
opinion.
guys, this is going to be the shortest podcast in history. I'm going to just let Colin out right now to drive back home. But no, definitely that's how we first broke the professional ice. We were in a big setting with a bunch of people on a huge Zoom call with people across the globe. And I heard a little accent. And so I think I DM'd him or something. And I cheekily said, is it chicken curry or curry chicken? But that's what started this blossoming friendship between Colin and I a couple of months ago. And certainly in the arena that we're in with Arlen's All Access, intellectually we're stimulated. From a character perspective, we're stimulated, just talking and learning about each other. But along that vein, right, what's a belief that you not only as a professional in the US, but sort of maybe growing up on the islands, what's a belief that you've had to let go to the version of you that we're going to learn more about today?
It's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Things are just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And that's a belief I think I've adapted when growing up. Mm-hmm. This is just how it's going to be. This is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think a lot of people are limited in creating a new version of themselves. And as I matured in life, and it took me a long time, I think around 39, 40, that's when I felt empowered to challenge that belief. It doesn't have to be the way it is. Yeah. I have the power to create a different version of me, a different future, and let go of that belief.
I think people think that is so hard, and it is. Yeah. The work never stops, but the conversation around reinventing yourself and choosing to design your life the way that you want to design it that's the secret sauce.
It is the secret sauce, but also so challenging because you're going against the grain of all these cultural beliefs, the way it has been for many people, the status quo, going against the grain of people who are close to you. Because as you start to question why is it this way and introduce new concepts and new people into your lives, new education into your life, new information, it becomes a divide because you become a little bit different, and those who've been with you for a while, they start to question it. Yeah. And, you become an American, you're changing.
You're rich and switch.
You're rich and switch. All those kind of things start coming out. And many of us, like for me, it was challenging for me because I didn't want to lose my friends. Yeah. But also at the same time, I know I wasn't happy here. Yeah. I need to grow. Yeah. And there've been some divisions, but also I think it's strengthened other friendships. And I also thought, as in hindsight, years later, I think it inspired some of those people we've grown apart. Yeah. It inspired me, okay, it could be, maybe I can change, maybe something I can do differently. And at least they say, if he can do it, if he can do it.
But don't you wish we knew this earlier? Shit. Like in our 20s or as a teen?
I think young people who are growing up, when I said I feel like an old man.
Yeah, me too. When I tell people I have an 18-year-old now, they just pause and give me that beat, like, oh my God, middle-ager. And I'm like, yeah, that's literally, I'm smelling 50, yo.
I'm in there. I have 31-year-old, 24-year-old, 12 and 10. Yeah. But I don't feel what I thought 50 would have felt like, at least when my parents were 50. Sure. It was different. Yeah. But I wish I knew this information earlier. I think kids that are growing up now, young people, they have access to so much information that can allow them to create a different future. I found it when 39, 40. That's when I found new information, had the courage to explore the new information. And by the way, podcast was one of those first...
Magic for me.
One of those first resources that I tapped into.
It's like accessing an intellectual capital that previously just didn't have the reach for.
And hearing these amazing stories. One of the first podcasts I remember listening to is by a guy named Cliff Ravenscraft. And he was sharing his journey and his transformation through going from full-time to self-employment, his health and fitness transformation. And you're hearing this and like, no, this sounds weird, but it sounds doable.
Yeah.
You know, so I think podcast is a great medium. And I think I know a lot of people have access to now. And it's a great way to open minds as to what is possible for me.
Yeah.
Versus before that for me was, this is possible for me based off my education, based off of where I am right now.
I always use this with my clients. So I'm wearing glasses today because my eyes are sort of giving up on me reading wise. But I always use this analogy that I don't remember. I can't attribute it to anyone, but they were talking about the first time. For a lot of us, we don't know we need glasses for reading. You just kind of just struggle through it until someone says, you know what, just try these. And when you go to the optometrist, you do the A/B test, right? A/B. It's A better, B better. And then at some point, the tiny, tiny line on the bottom of the chart, you're like, oh, it's elemental P, Q. And you're like, oh my God, I could conquer the world, right? But before that, it was just a blurry guessing game.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much power in a shifted perspective. An A or a B. It literally can go from a murky kind of cloudy path forward to complete clarity. And if I had to explain coaching or the work that we do, you know, people, okay, do we transform lives? Do we help people? Do we heal people? Okay, all of the above. But that perspective shift, I know for me and definitely hundreds of people I've talked to about this, that it takes a shift. And then suddenly you're like, oh, and I love that. I mean, that's kind of your perspective is you can redesign, recreate the rules that you thought you had to live by to live a completely different quality of life. There's so much power in that.
Absolutely.
How do you teach that to your kids?
When they're receptive.
Mic drop. You're so right.
When they're receptive. So my older two.
Hold on, Colin. I'm still laughing. Right.
I wish everyone, I wish my kids thought I was
cool
and wise.
No. They'll think it after, but,
So I'll tell you a quick story for me. I actually didn't think my parents were cool or wise until around 27. And then it hit me one day. These people knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Because all the things they were telling me just hit me.
You know, these old sayings come back.
And I say them all the time now. But
an ounce of prevention, a pound of cure.
Yeah. One of my favorites is, my niece and nephews have fun with this. A liar is a thief and a thief is a murderer. So that's what my mother always used to say.
I never heard that one.
A liar is a thief and a thief is a murderer.
Okay.
My mother always say that. And then she suspected of lying. She would go as far as saying, one day you may murder me because you want to defend your lie. I'm like, okay, stop it. We don't need to go that far. But I didn't think my parents were wise. They weren't smart or anything like that until 27, around that time. And it just hits me. These people know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had the same expectations of my kids. I would try to force my knowledge, force my wisdom on them. And I realized, no, just be the best example. They're going to get it. And I've been blessed that my son has come back to me years later and said the same thing. Yeah, man, I remember this thing you told me back then, right? And I think a lot of times as parents, we want to see that, get the gratification in the moment.
My God, yeah.
But I think they're hearing us. A seed is being planted in them. But I think one other thing to that, I think because of our example, kids see our examples even more than hear us. And because of my transformation, my son and my daughter got to see. You
walk the talk,
Yeah, they got to see both sides of me. They got to see the guy before the transformation, the guy after. And my daughter recently said, yeah, I remember when you started changing. I was worried about you, but you became cool. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Right? And my son said the same thing. And look at you
graduating to coolness, Colin.
I've always been cool. Just they didn't know that. Just they didn't know that.
Tell me about this transformation. I know when we were kind of talking ahead of the podcast, I know what it is, but so we kind of talked a little bit about that mental switch, right? And that kind of awakening. I like to call it that evolution that, oh wow, I got to do something, get out of this status quo. What was that transformation like? Maybe like the hardest thing and the simplest thing.
The hardest thing is realizing that I needed to change.
Yeah.
Right.
To stick with itness, I'm sure.
the stick with this come later on, but just that initial moment, realizing, okay, I need to change.
What caused it?
Two things. Number one, I got a good dumping.
Yeah.
A partner I was with for many years decided she wanted to leave.
Yeah.
And in that moment, of course, what many people do is blame the person. But because of the information I was consuming, the podcast I was starting to listen to, the books I was being introduced to, I had a pause to start to question what was my part of this. Yeah. Didn't make it easy.
It's easy to make them the villain, right?
Oh,
it takes two to tango.
So much easier to make them the villain. But that when you start realizing, okay, number one, how I was showing up contributed to that whole situation.
Yes, that's so powerful.
We're amazing friends now.
Yeah.
But in that initial moment, it wasn't a pleasant situation. So that's one. And number two, I had a medical diagnosis. Went for an annual checkup around 40. Doctor said, hey, you got to get on blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine. You need to lose 60 pounds or you're
bell of doom.
The bell of doom. Yeah. And he said, hey, if you don't lose it, you potentially you'll die. And then the thing that really got me, I said, hey, how long do I need to be on this medicine? And I thought, just me, he was being flippant. He said, oh, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, like nothing, right?
No, that doesn't make sense. I've never been on any medicine. Yeah. I asked him, hey, what can I do? And again, in my mind, and I was saying, because I can make up stories. In my mind, I felt he was being sarcastic when he said, hey, lose 60 pounds in the next 6 months and we'll talk about it. I said, okay, I'll give that a try. Went to my car and just thought about, okay, I'm getting dumped.
Yes.
I'm going to die. Yeah. What's going to happen to my kids?
Right.
What's going to happen to my kids? Yeah. So you need to change something.
Listen, if a bird had pooped on your windscreen at that moment, you just be... I say that in jest, but it happened to me one time. Rock bottom, man. And this pigeon just like, oh, here's more.
Oh, those pigeons know when
they don't even care.
They know to rub it in.
Yeah.
So that was
so you had that sobering.
Yeah, it was very eye-opening. And I had to make a decision. But again, it comes back to being encouraged because I heard someone on this podcast. He was making the same kind of transformation with his health and fitness. Yeah. He made it seem easy.
In some way, you had like a little accountability partner without it actually being, Yeah. Yeah.
That was basically it.
Yeah. Mine was similar in the sense of a huge health. I mean, the funny thing is, Colin, and some people would argue this, but we know. Like there is a piece of us deep inside that intuition understands when we are bullshitting our way through things.
Yeah.
And I had we had the salary, we had the house, in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. We had the federal job. Kevin was an executive with the hospital system. Like we had the life, 2 great kids, like nothing to be irate about, nothing to quote unquote complain about.
Right.
And I knew I wasn't feeling well, was pushing through, was traveling, all this stuff. And I knew something was wrong and just quote unquote didn't have the time.
Yeah.
Right. Was too busy to actually figure out what was happening. And I like to say, God doesn't come to me gently. He drops like a whole mountain in the skyscraper and then the pigeon stuff at the same time. So for me, it was emergency surgery, flatlining twice, and coming out of that reckoning. And so for me, it was very drastic, the change. It was moving to Florida. It was quitting our jobs. It was redefining, deciding we were going to do something immaculately different. Because the status quo because I saw that I almost missed it. I would have almost missed my daughter's graduation tomorrow. So many things, right? Yeah. So I feel like the people that come to me have had some sort of health crisis or a loss, whether it was a separation or being dumped, whatever, that jarred the identity that they've been comfortable in.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great way of being, but it wasn't bad. It was just what they knew.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of times you settle for what you know.
Yeah.
Versus, it could be better, but what is better? How can I get, and better is also.
And I don't have it as bad as somebody else. Like that is the lie we tell ourselves. It's, that comparison to the worst. Yeah.
Way different from mine,
Yeah.
But I think, and it's give us a fake sense of comfort in the moment.
Well, it's an alibi.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a freaking alibi where you get to opt out of the hard thing.
Yep.
Because so-and-so has it harder. So dumb.
Now in hindsight, we can say that.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me about okay, so you have this epiphany, you're in the car. It's cascading down. Then what? What's the decision in that moment? I know he issued you that challenge, right?
Decision I had to change. I had to change. I know in that moment I had to change. And it started with my health and fitness journey. I did nothing phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little bit embarrassed. I said 40 years old, I didn't know how to read labels.
Yeah.
So I started.
No, man. I mean, that's important for us to share.
Yeah, I didn't know how to read labels. So that's the first time I learned to read labels.
Macros still intimidate the hell out of me. Yeah.
And then I realized, this explains why you're doing no physical activity, you're eating
all that chicken
food.
curry.
And the
with
roti.
the rice and the roti and the potato salad.
And everything else that passes
I call it carb on carb crime.
Oh, guilty.
And they have the tiny little 2 pieces of cucumber like that's supposed to help us. The shredded carrot.
Yeah. Wow. That's funny. You look at those plates. So that's basically what I was eating. I didn't know differently. And I was eating a lot of course, American diet too. Sure. A lot of fast food, a lot of sodas, a lot of cookies. Yeah. So that's the first thing I started doing is looking, okay, what do I need to change? The person podcast was listening to, he was going through it. So I said, I'll do what he says. Yeah. He was walking. So I started walking. I started watching my portions, learning about calories. I started journaling and really listening to more information. I just started listening to different podcasts, more books, just getting new information. And the walk was pretty simple, 30 minutes a day. Yeah. I was living in outside of Richmond, Virginia at the time. Okay. And I thought my subdivision had hills both directions.
Oh, shoot.
I couldn't find a direction where it was in the hill. I just walked 30 minutes a day, regardless of my schedule, watched my diet and just kept learning. And that's where the transformation started to happen for me. To me, the big part was my diet, because as I started to monitor my intake, I realized on an average day was between 3,000 to 5,000 calories. And I was in middle management at the time, and something that suited me was oatmeal raisin cookies and Pepsi. And those
that's a devious combo, bro.
Look, those oatmeal raisin cookies at BJ's Wholesale Club. That's where I got mine.
A little warmed up.
They're perfect, but each cookie is 250 calories. And on a bad day, I was putting away about 10.
And they're giant.
And they're giant.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I realized I was doing the wrong thing there. And I just made that commitment. I shared with my partner at the time. I don't think I shared with her as a way to keep her, but I respected her and I wanted her to think differently of me. And I shared, hey, this is what I'm going to do. So that kept me accountable. Also, I shared it with my kids. And one thing I pride myself on is if I make a promise to my children, I do my best to keep it. You hold that integrity with them. Right. Yeah. And that's what I did. Started that process. And before you know it, I started losing weight, feeling better about myself. But the thing I felt better about first was my consistency and commitment to following through my walks, because I went and walked on nights when it was raining, but that was the only time I can get my 30 minutes in. It seemed pretty weird at the time. Now it's normal for me I walk most nights.
And that's the thing that I think we underestimate, how that consistency and that discipline allows us to build something into our lifestyle that's long-term, sustains our health, builds up that resiliency. Like just same way you get up every morning, you brush your teeth, you fold in that walk or that whatever. For me, I think the health part is the first frontier of leadership. And I know that's, because innately, a lot of us are smart. We are book smart. Some of us are street smart. Hey, if you won the lotto and you're book and street smart, good for you. But a lot of us have to work at, building the empire, getting the degree. Like it's so all-consuming, that definition of success, that when the health piece and the actual humanity of us, I do believe it's a mind, spirit, physical body symbiosis, right? Like I think that for me, a big part of my journey has been getting back in touch with my spiritual side, getting back in touch with my intuition about people, my energy around people. What am I giving off? Who's like an energy sucker? Like, am I exhausted after talking to you? Like, we haven't stopped like grinning since we met. This is the first time we're meeting in person, by the way. But who are the people that I walk away and I'm like, great episode. Can't wait never to like interact with you that way again. Right. Like trusting in those parts of us. And it starts with mastering our physical health. I got up this morning and it was raining and I was like, I don't really need to. I was like, nope, you got a raincoat. You've got waterproof shoes. This dog needs to go outside. He loves the rain. So it wasn't my normal 3-mile trek, but it was a quick 20-minute, 30-minute. I came in and I was like, my blood was going, right? I think that and I'm going to segue hard here because you are a master salesperson and I want to get into that conversation. Mastering and having discipline and personal power and autonomy over yourself is the first ingredient of true leadership. And sales, if anybody is successful, they have to learn how to influence people, how to sell something, whether it's you, your idea, your company, your mission, your vision, whether it's a grant you're asking for. Yet we have so many gross feelings about it. Talk to me about how you help people overcome that hesitancy around sales or that fear.
Yeah.
Using that mastery, that discipline, you know?
I think one of the things I feel happens is when you create success in one area of your life, especially an area that is different from where you're a master at, like going back to physical health.
Sure. You
grow in a level of confidence and certainty that you could do hard things.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And then you're able to transfer that on. I was one of those people that hated selling. Started coaching professionally in 2013 and literally was giving it away because I didn't want to come off as salesy or needy or just
like you're asking somebody for something.
For the money.
Yeah.
And, I really don't care about people.
Yeah.
And
what are they going to say about me?
And also the big thing is actually, could I deliver? Yeah. Right? That was the question.
Oh, that's so good.
Could I deliver? Can I actually?
Was that a subconscious fear? Like, can I deliver? If I ask for a high price and I don't deliver, does that make me not valuable or valued?
Makes me not valuable. Makes me not trusted.
Oh,
shut
up, Colin, so
people,
much. Yeah, right? yeah.
It makes me feel like I
let them down, maybe.
Let them down, but also I took advantage of them. Those are kind of stories that were going in my head for many years. Yeah. And
listen, full confession, I think I probably still have some of those hanging around. You and I have talked about this. Colin's been kind of, coaching me. And they come up so innocently.
They're always there, but it depends on it's building a muscle to challenge it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things
and recognizing it, right?
Recognize that. Look, is that true? That's a question. That's one of my favorite questions. When I have those crazy thoughts, is that true?
Can you record that for us? And
is that true?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
And I pause, and usually the answer is no. That's
no. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't, I'm a big fan of questioning those negative thoughts and those negative beliefs as they show up. That's a process that I learned, and it's helped me in other areas of my life. Because random thoughts will come into your head, and is that true? No. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on from that. But all those feelings and those stories we tell ourselves are real. They've been there, and I've leaned into them.
They've been on repeat. It's a pattern.
On repeat in a pattern, but also for many people in career, those are the same stories we in my career. I told myself those stories not to ask for the salaries that I wanted, not to ask for the promotions that I wanted, not to question a review.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like I'm full of myself. Yeah. So I'll just work harder the next time and do. But no, I don't think that's right, bro. That's really what I want to say. No, that's not right. Here's proof. But I didn't have that courage. Yeah. So fast forward to how getting over sales was through mentorship and coaching.
Sure.
Ran into a coach, and he said, "Hey, you told me all these big dreams that you have. You want to do this full time? Yeah, cool. But how come you're not doing it?" And he told me, he said, "Great. If you want to do those things, you need to start making money from it."
That gentle confrontation is so good.
He wasn't that gentle. He was very, very blunt to the point.
I say gentle, but it's a relentless. I respect, and I am a person like that. Not everybody likes my brand of coaching, but it is a gentle relentlessness around not letting people off the hook. Because very smart, very successful people are also very charismatic. And they know how to be charming and get out of the tight spot, right? Some call it political salve, whatever, but they know how to make you feel good. Even their therapists, there's some therapists that are like, I don't know who you think you're fooling with that.
Yep. They just come in and work their magic. I love coaching people like that because
it's like crack your knuckles. You
just call it out. And then I was actually talking to one of my friends on the way down. We were talking about this. Some coaching things. One of my favorite coaching questions are phrases before a question is, can I ask you a hard question? And when they give me permission, I can ask, I can challenge them on these.
Yeah.
things, right?
What are the 3 things people throw up the most as their as their alibis? I was going to say white flags, but that's surrendering. But as their alibis for not doing better at sales or sticking with the plan, what are the 3 things? I'm sure I'm saying this on purpose because I'm sure where people are going to be like, oh.
First is my branding is not ready. I know my brand is not ready as yet.
I'm sorry. Did you meet me last year?
My messaging is not ready as yet. The second is I need to get my offer. I need to make sure my offer is perfect. My offer is not right. And I'm tweaking I'm working my offer.
Yeah.
Right. And the third, I need a strategy. My social media strategy or my content strategy need to be tweaked. All those things are great. But if you don't know how to sell and those things are perfect, and then you wait to learn how to sell as the last thing, you'll be disappointed because you have a lot of expectations now. People are coming to you. They're expecting you to help them. You're expecting because of the volume, I'm going to enroll more people, and then you're stuck. So I always flip it on top. I'm like, hey, learn how to sell first. Your messaging will get a lot clearer. Your offer will become even better.
What's the truth behind those 3? What's a truth rather? Because there could be many things. But what's a pretty solid truth behind the dancing around not being ready yet?
I think selling is hard. I don't want to do that. And
then it brings to bear all of the things you just talked about.
I think
what people are going to say, what are they going to think? Am I pushy? Like you're bringing the whole soundtrack of trash to the thing.
I also think another truth behind that for many professionals is comparing coaching rates to their salary. Right?
Say more.
Usually if you start coaching, it's somewhat of a trading time for money in the beginning. That's how people see it. That's how people see it. But as you evolve in your offer, it doesn't have to be that way. So if it's $500 an hour and someone's been making $800, $1,000 an hour in their profession, is this worth it? Right? It's our question. Is this worth it? I'm making less money, and there's some doubt there about the whole idea of, am I making less?
And they're coming out the gate hesitant, I feel.
Coming out the gate hesitant.
Not fully committed, rather.
But also coming out the gate at seeing themselves in a different light.
Yeah, like less than.
In coaching, you see yourself
so
less than.
In
your profession, you were this person, right? You were in charge. You were the leader.
You see why he's a master coach, guys.
You were the expert. But now that's not the way you are right now. You're not in the beginner stage.
You are showing up literally different if you are in that mindset.
Absolutely.
You've given your power away.
You've given your power away. You've given the energy away, and people feel that. You become needy,
you're hesitant. You're right. You're a little bit what's the right word I'm looking for? Not desperate, but cajoling instead of confident. You're trying to almost persuade them that this is something they should do versus, nope, you're thirsty, I have water. I remember you telling me that, and I was like, oh, that was so good.
You're looking to prove yourself.
Yes.
And you show up so differently when you're looking to prove yourself versus knowing I know.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing what I have is amazing. And it's just, to me, it's a different mindset, a different shift.
Is it too early for happy hour after this conversation call?
I have to drive back.
I know.
Yeah.
Tell me about, you said something to me that was so powerful. And it literally, I had like a 10K week after we had that conversation, right? So the topic was, I had a person come to me, a very successful woman, a multimillionaire, approached me for coaching. She saw me give a keynote and just really wanted my brand of what I do. And I had doubts around it because I was like, I'm not a multimillionaire. What do I know about coaching this person? And it really put me in a low mental state, like low energy. I wasn't showing up the way I normally show up. I could literally feel a light behind my eyes dim because I didn't think I was worthy of coaching her. I didn't think I was prepared enough. I didn't have my, that edge to make her more millions. And I was opting out of the whole, I was avoiding the call, like not even acting like myself. And you and I talked that one night. I don't know what we were talking about, and I brought it up. And who was the dude you use? It was baseball, Gisele Bundchen's ex-husband, Brady. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady? He's football.
Okay, so maybe I'm mixing up my sport, but it was Tom Brady. You said, do you think Tom Brady's coaches are sitting around? One, do you think Tom Brady's coaches have done what he's done? And I was like, absolutely not. And it could be anybody. It could be Kobe, whoever, right? And you said, do you think they're sitting around opting out of coaching Tom Brady because they've never? And I was like, oh, let me tell you, the freaking light bulb that gave me, Colin, invaluable. But you're right. How do coaching 5, 6, 7 figure people, maybe even, how does that feel different to you? And I'm deliberately asking this way, or is it the same? They're the same. They have the same worries that we do.
They have the same concerns, the same worries, but also they're looking to be led. Yeah. And if you go into a coaching relationship with them, a coaching conversation, and you're tentative, weak, they now become concerned. Is this the right person for me? Yeah. So it takes a level of strength and certainty about what you can do. Yeah. And most times you don't have to be an expert in that particular industry to coach that person, right? You don't
say that again.
You don't have to be an expert in their industry to coach them. Yeah. You just have to be able to listen, ask the right questions, and a lot of times is reflecting back on them what they're saying to you. Is many times no one's really telling them the truth. Wait, did you just tell me that you're a failure because? And I list all the things that they pause and they're like, yeah, what's the story behind that? So to me, it's just a lot of conversations and being a mirror. That's what I call this, being a mirror. Just reflecting back on them. This is the person I see in front of me. Is this accurate? Oh yeah, helping them tap into those parts
that
of
inner
them,
conviction almost.
Those parts of them that have the strength, and identify areas to create.
I've definitely, and I mean, I worked for IBM. I worked for big companies. I mean, my first job was sales, even though it was retail. But when we worked at Bank of America, when I was in college, all we did was try to upsell accounts and credit cards, and you did it so normally. You didn't think of it as selling. It was just part of what you were supposed to say. Yeah. But looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh. Everything was, oh, would you like to try our 2% whatever intro rate and we were just trained, given a script, and you just kind of did
it. So what happened in that situation? There was a reason why they were there. They were having an interaction. And then the next natural thing is offer a better solution or another solution. Sure. I think that's what selling.
And you were already in a trusted position, handling their money.
There you go.
Even though you were young and I was 18, right? I didn't know nothing about nothing.
But you were vetted by an institution that they believe was, did due diligence on you. I think the same income with sales overall is developing a high level of trust with people, cultivating relationships, looking for ways to help them, and then positioning what you do, if it can help them, as the next best solution. Here's a recommendation.
Translate what you just said into their fears that you mentioned earlier. In other words, building the trust, understanding their problems, being in a vetted role, if you will, and then juxtaposition that against, I got to do my branding. I don't know the words. Show me how the two can marry and play nice.
So part of the branding is to develop trust, right?
We're laughing because it seems obvious, but let's just walk the talk.
Part of branding is developing. I need to create this brand to develop trust. Yeah. Well, I think trust is best developed in many cases. Is through personal interaction, through conversations, through connections, through giving people what they want. Because most times in branding, we create a brand that we think people are looking for or we feel is attractive to us. Yeah. Do people really want that? Right. So how do you know what people want? It's through meaningful connection and conversation. Now, how do you do that on the masses? Surveys. You have A/B tests on free resources you put out, videos, your social media content. Okay, people responded best to this. Let me just reach out to those people who liked or comment and find out, hey, what about this that stood out to you? And to start that conversation there. Through that conversation, you develop some trust. Yes. And through that conversation, you're hearing what is it they're looking for. By the way, I think I can help you with that. Let's talk. Let's have a time to talk.
The way that you said that, I was like, oh, yes. Please.
That's how you want to.
Normal and calm and confident and no brainer, dude.
Don't get weird and do it. A lot of people make it very
the heart eye emojis.
A lot of people get all weird about sales conversations. And I used to. But I just look at it if I know, I think I can help you with that. You want to talk about that? And then we get into conversation. Okay, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump on a quick call.
Yeah.
And I always try to set a proper frame for the conversation. I don't want it to be perceived as a social engagement. That's a different kind of conversation. If you just want to get on a chat and we're cool like that, I'll do that. But I don't want to, if I feel I can offer you a solution to help you and you voice concern that you may want that solution or you have pains or challenges that I think can help you with, I want to have the right frame when I get into that conversation. Hey, we're here to talk about solving that. We're not here to chit chat about whatever we want to chit chat
and
about.
my coaching is, yes, it's executive coaching, but to your point, you have to lead yourself by example first. And a lot of that is understanding and having clarity around what really is your problem. Because 99% of the time, it's not what you came to me for.
Yep.
So that discovery phase that you're talking about is imperative, but also if people are, how to say this, either not in a growth mindset or just really resistant to, okay, how do we design your perfect day? And they're like, I'm like, look, every morning I know I need an hour and a half.
Same here.
Or 2 hours.
That's why we're friends.
Yes.
It's 2 hours for me every day.
I call it goddess work.
I haven't named mine that.
You can do Hercules work. But you know what I mean? Like it was never important, Colin. And now it sets the tone for not only my day, but my week, but the way I show up when things are chaotic. That inner core is super, I'm peaceful. Yeah. I'm generally like, good.
One of the things I feel I tell people a lot of times is that people come to me to learn how to sell.
Yeah.
But we go beyond that. So always, hey, how can I sell more of this thing? And we start peeling back.
Yeah, because you've talked about mindset. You've talked about health. You've talked about your commitments to your significant people in your life.
Well, I think beneath that desire to sell more, there's some personal development that needs to occur. And most times my initial conversations goes back to, what is the story you're telling yourself about selling? And then you'll hear people say, I've sold in this area before, but I can't sell this offer now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's usually not the offer, it's a conversation. So I spend a lot of time with my clients on personal development work, personal development processes, on helping them identify limiting beliefs and reframing those beliefs and creating practices that build a solid core. And then now we can build on that.
Now that your foundation is stronger, then we build a castle, right? Because we can't build that on quicksand. If you get to a certain level, and we see this, they want to coin it imposter syndrome or whatever. When you get to a certain level and you're like, oh, these things can really cut the legs out from under you.
And sales is actually a personal development exercise.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
It's a personal development exercise. And when you have that certainty and confidence and belief about you, about your offer, about people, when you're solid about that, the next part of the process, okay, how do I find people to let them know I can help them? And then getting into the selling part. So once you're solid as a person and what you're thinking up here, the whole selling process becomes a lot easier. And
it's just a normal part of what you do.
Yeah, it's just a normal part of what you do. I find most people, though, try to go the easy route.
Yeah.
And the easy route is finding a better script. Tell me exactly what to say. How do I cover all these objections? Yeah, those things come up, but they're so much easier to handle when you have a high level of certainty.
I feel like almost, Colin, they want the formula, the prescription down to the pipette drop of whatever. And really it's just an approach to the process.
Yeah, it's an approach. It's just being the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Because and I've given people the perfect script, in my opinion. Scripts I've used and I've had a lot of success. Yeah. But they're not. You
very freely give those to anybody that will ask. Because you know what? It's in the delivery.
By the way, can I be totally transparent?
Yes.
I give it to anyone who asks me.
Yeah.
Because I know when I follow up, they weren't able to do it the way they thought they can do it.
Absolutely.
And that opens some conversation. Yeah. How can I help you with that better? Let's get into a conversation. And most times I end up in me enrolling them into how I can help them, coaching them or into a program that I have, right? Because people think it's the script, it's the objection handling. But no, it's how you show up as a person that script has become even easier. Most times you don't even need a script. Right?
Yeah.
You can just go through.
And if you are an expert and if you are confident in your offer and you are confident in what you're doing, those questions come naturally because you know the triggers, you know the pain points, and you know the transformation. So really it's just finding, okay, if it's not their health, it's their relationship. If it's not boundaries, it's finances. If it's not finances, there's only so many things humans care about.
Yeah. But also the courage to ask a hard question to get to what's really the reason behind people want to do
God,
things.
that's where the fear kicks in.
Yeah, because that's none of my business. That's what the first thing I see. Being from Guyana, being from the West Indies, is like, that's none of my business.
Yeah.
But no, it is my business. If I'm in the transformation business, it is my business to find out what is behind the facade, what is behind the story you're telling me, what's beside. Yeah.
And a lot of times it's fear of failure.
Fear of failure or fear of how people perceive you.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people say, hey, I have to make this kind of money in the next 6 months. Why? Oh, I just need it. I need to pay bills. Why is that important? And then you start getting into the root cause. My kid is about to go to college. Yeah. I'm not sure I'll be able to support him. Okay, that's the meaning behind it.
That's a sense of urgency. That's the truth, except,
No, I know we can address that. Okay. Yeah. So what is about the kid going to college, you're not being able to help them? How is that going to affect you? Yeah. Then it comes in how the identity, how they see themselves. Okay, cool. Now you give yourself a reason to. Yeah. Do the thing you say you want to do.
And honestly, when you give yourself these higher esteem needs and you identify it as the reason you want to do, as your why, the energy naturally flows from that. Yeah. The energy around me saying something is for my family, nothing is too freaking hard.
Yeah. Well, you have to be clear in it. You have to be clear in that why. Sure. The other thing too, a lot of people say, well, I want to focus on other people. I want to serve. Yeah, that's cool. But let's be honest. What's in it for you? There always has to be something in it for us. We just don't serve, most of us. Don't serve just to serve. There's something we want. Yeah. So if we're clear on what is it we want, how can I help someone else so I can have what I want? And then the whole selling process becomes a little bit more natural and kind. It also, there's temptation.
Listen, I've never heard anybody use those two words in sales, like natural and kind. But no, there's something phenomenal about that coupled with an oftentimes icky word, sales. Because sales gets all the trauma, drama, right?
That's what I thought sales was before I got into sales. Right now I sell high-end stuff for my clients. Yeah. I go to the mastermind where my clients fulfill on these offers. I am there. I'm not one of those salespeople who sell and then you don't see them again, right? Yeah. I work with a selective group of people and I like to be involved in the process. Yeah. So I go to these high-end masterminds. So I know it has to deliver. Well, I'm able to sell because I know that with high level of certainty, the program delivers. I'm still connected to the program. And if you do the work, you'll get a result.
Tell me how you've had to level up in our mastermind, in Arlen's All Access, leading solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business people, predominantly people of color, so a very diverse population globally, in a way that you didn't expect, but is so rewarding. Like, what's the level up been?
The level up for me was, again, how I saw myself.
Yeah.
Right? Is we have a lot of people who are ultra successful in the All Access community. Yeah. They're getting amazing results and they're looking to raise their game. And what I realized, if I wanted to help them, and for me to best help them, I had to have a higher level of certainty about how I can help them. Not only in a sales way, but how else in their life can I help them? Who can I introduce them to? So having a greater level of awareness.
I love that.
About
that is important.
The person, right? Is this everyone I speak to? I would say most people I speak to in our communities, in the inner circle, in the mastermind, I'm always looking for someone I can introduce them to. Now, leveling up for me is also realizing I am not the ultimate source of all the answers. There's things I don't know. Yeah. But being open to, I'm not sure about that, but here's someone I think, right? Once I let go of...
That's a powerful form of humility.
Once I let go of, I have to know everything. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It becomes a lot easier to go about
You are process. Now a resource, not the source.
Yeah, I'm a resource. Yeah. The source. I actually... Yeah. And most times I find people have the answers within them. They don't have many people who will ask the right questions. and sit and listen to them and then feedback
and
to
challenge them.
Challenge them, but also feedback to them what they're saying. Wait a second, is that true? That's
sometimes leaders at that level, it's a bunch of yes people around them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are intimidated. In that environment, you know, okay, there's something's missing.
Yeah.
You have some permission to poke a little bit more. And just get it out of my own way and get out of my own head.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of doing the work every day. Like you mentioned, 2 hours a day, I focus on setting myself up right mentally for success.
And when you look at the hyper successful people right now, their well-being, their sense of vitality is not an afterthought as when we were younger and climbing and struggling our way up the ladder. It is at the forefront of what they do. If you look at when, you know, you've done the Tony Robbins things too, they're doing cold plunge, they're doing breath work, they're meditating, they're doing affirmations, all before a lot of people are up.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a funny story about Tony Robbins. Moved to New York City in the late 80s. And I was excited that there's TV on after midnight. I didn't have that in Guyana. And Tony Robbins had infomercials at that time. And I would watch it and I'm literally thinking, what a douche. That is fake. Fast forward 20 years later, who's at the Tony Robbins events? I am.
Yeah,
who's enrolled to the entire process?
Same.
I am. Right. It to me was a full circle.
Kevin's like, are you back in the cult? I'm like,
Yeah.
Yes.
That was my introduction, hardcore into personal development and just looking at life differently, right? But it went from, you know, when you don't know certain things and you're, open to embracing it and just exploring what it is. I've had friends, I mentioned quickly, I've had friends who got into Tony and it's, well, that's not for me, but it was cute.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Versus me.
I do believe the collective evolution, of course, starts with each person, but until we fully understand our impact on the hundreds of people we will touch. And if we are in the matrix still and really functioning at that less than our potential level, we miss out on so much. I mean, me opening myself up to a different way of thinking and being has enriched so many things in my life that I couldn't conceptualize. And I think that's the thing, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, what are 2 things, if you had to leave with listeners that are kind of all over the map, right? Mostly middle-aged, mostly thinking about those 3 things I talked about. What are 2 things around sales that you would leave with them? Kind of micromillimeter shifts.
One is when you empower yourself to sell a solution that you know that works, you empower people to create a ripple effect in the world.
I love that.
And you get some micro credit for helping someone who's way downstream because you helped someone make a good decision.
Yeah.
They follow through on that decision and they went out and helped hundreds and thousands of other people that you might not have ever met. That is one of the things I envision every day. I'm like, I want this person to win because I want to have that ripple effect in the world.
Yeah.
So to me, that's one of the best things about selling. It creates positive change. And sometimes I have to make this distinction. Selling products and services that you know that's good for people, good for the world, and also good for yourself. Yeah. Right? You just not selling crap to sell crap. If you're and honest.
Do it with integrity, right? Like do it with absolute integrity. The human experience is the same. We all experience sadness, right? Grief, happiness, excitement, all of those things. I think understanding your blocks around serving others instead of saying, oh, my blocks are on selling. It's a block around serving others. And if you make it about you, why am I going to fail? Is my branding? Then you don't get to fulfill your sort of soul contract, which is what you're talking about, being that tiny pebble causing that ripple downstream that you will have no idea who you've touched and changed. Right? I love that.
The second thing I want to mention when it comes to selling is don't overcomplicate it. Be you in the process.
Yeah.
Anyone can read a script. And anyone can tell when you're reading a script. Yeah. And when most times you're reading a script, you're not paying attention to the answers because you're just waiting to read the next line. Yeah. So and
you can see it.
You can just questions finished. And sometimes the next question is not really aligned with the answer. Right. I do a lot of call reviews for my clients. And at the beginning, I'm like, okay. And as you pointed out to people, then they notice it. So I'm a big fan of being yourself. You are a buyer. Most people who are selling, they've purchased.
We are consumers of,
tons of stuff before. Yes. Why did you buy certain things? An exercise out of
because of how it was going to make me feel.
Right. Okay. So let's go back. And that person that sold it to you, how did they sell it? What did they say to you to connect it to how it's going to make you feel and the results that you wanted? Yeah. Okay. Be that kind of person. I've had sales encounters.
And I think another misnomer is I'm selling to everyone. You're not.
No. And it's okay to say no. That's the cool thing about selling is not everyone gets an offer. When I sell, not everybody's
thirsty for the water.
Not everyone is thirsty. And not everyone is right for me.
Yeah.
Right. If I get a certain energy or certain vibe based off of certain responses, I just sometimes just call it out. Say, hey, I don't think we're connecting the way I like to connect with my clients. Is there something else I should know about you? Right. So they can maybe open up.
Yeah.
Or this may not be a good fit for where you are right now. Here's a couple of resources I have to move on. But I don't feel don't feel the need to have to close every deal.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing that makes people
having discernment around that.
One sale more than likely is not going to change your life.
But it can.
It can, but more than likely it's not going to change your life.
In the sense of letting people go. Colin, thank you so much for making the drive, making the effort, for your friendship, for your leadership and around a topic that is so ick for many of us, right? Where can people find you?
Easy place, colinyearwood.com. There you'll find me on social and LinkedIn, Facebook, on my YouTube channel.
Awesome.
And you can definitely send me an email, or I think my calendar link is on there too.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan. Thank you so much. So if you're listening right now and feeling like you're on the edge of your own reinvention, whether it's some of the things we've talked about, your health, your confidence, your business, your approach to sales, I want you to hear loud and clear. You're not behind. You're right on time. You don't need permission. You just need one decision, and you don't have to do it alone. You can find support, whether it's podcasts. We mentioned so many things here, right? This is why we go Beyond the Quo, because the life you want, it's not out of an obligation. It's not out of your reach. It's just on the other side of something, a change in perspective, a shift in a belief, a difference in mindset, and it really is attainable. So if you love this episode, please do me a favor, share it with a friend, share it with someone that needs it, leave us a 5-star review so more people can see us and we get amplified, and connect with me and Colin. He shared his information. I will have it on our YouTube station, but we'd love to know how this landed with you. Until next time, lead with courage, and I'll see you Beyond the Quo. Thanks, Colin.
Thanks for having me.
Yay.